the CEO of Oscillate Plc. Robin, it's great to be speaking to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's great to be back on again. I'm very much looking forward to this interview, actually.
Good. No, it's good to be talking to you. And of course, you joined the board of Oscillate in January. So just tell us a little bit about how that all came about and the restructuring of the management there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have some quite close friends who were involved in the company, large shareholders, and one of them rang me up and said, can you help us out with the company? And I said, sure, let me take a look and see what it is. I had a look at the assets, went back to him and said, what sort of leeway do I have to make some decisions about this company? He said, look, Robin, you can do whatever you want with the company. And so I went back to him and said, look, I've got a series of copper assets that I'm very interested in, and I'd like to transition the company to a copper explorer and developer for the moment, but hopefully move into development and production over a, say, 3 to 5 year window.
Okay, that sounds like a very good sort of remit there. So does this tie into what the announcement was the other day here with the JV and earning agreement with Evolution Energy Minerals with the Chikundo copper project? I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about that in Tanzania.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, Mark, that's really the first of what we hope to be several acquisitions.
Okay.
We are working very hard on a couple of others, one of which is a pretty blockbuster one. We'll see where we get to on that over the next few days here. I've been discussing the terms with the vendors. But yeah, that really just indicates that was the start of the transition of the company to a copper explorer and developer.
Okay.
So we're very excited about that and looking forward to progressing that through the process that we have there.
So is it really a transition into a copper explorer? I mean, what else are we talking here? Well, why copper, first of all?
Well, look, I had a thesis about gold and copper previously over, so about 3 years ago. We did some work in the gold space, and we're very, very lucky with an excellent discovery that did quite well on that. And then this opportunity came up for me, Mark, where I was given relatively free range about the assets that we could look at, plus also who we could staff into the company, onto the board, and into the management. And that thesis was that gold generally leads, especially in an inflationary environment that we've had, and it looks like we're going to continue to have. You've seen gold at the time when we looked at when this thesis was forming. Gold is around 1,600. You're a bit above 3,000 now, so it's performed the way that I was kind of expecting. Obviously, it's not always perfect, but more or less. And then my view is that generally copper trails that by 1 to 2 years. So we wanted to do the same thing, and you get, as I think we were talking about this a little bit before. You get this. A multiple expansion in the copper company equity versus the price of copper or versus the price of gold. So as especially in the exploration and development phase, as the price of copper rises and the major producers there in the ground pounds become more valuable, which means that they can bid more for resources. So we need to go through the process over the next several years of building up a nice inventory of resources and see if there's anybody out there. As you know from what stuff we've done before, we can build ourselves, but it is much easier to be taken out.
Sure. So is it purely copper then going forward, or other commodities?
Yeah, for this vehicle, it's purely copper. We do,
Okay.
I mean, I can come and talk to you about some other stuff, but we also have a thesis on uranium, and we're building a uranium company, which is completely separate from Oscillate.
Okay.
But yeah, for this vehicle, it's a copper vehicle. And as I say, we've got the first that was to plant the flag and show people that we have interesting acquisitions to pursue, but we have several that we are working on right now.
So the other ones you're working on, I appreciate you probably can't share too many details, but are you looking at geographical locations, geology?
Well, look, our main focus will be Africa. We have a lot of experience here. There are good, of course, there's good assets in copper in other places, but we're focusing on a specific type of copper asset as well. We don't want to really. Discovering a very large porphyry is quite hard to finance, and you need a large partner to do that. And so we're kind of looking more at the mid-scale. And if I can speak of a very good friend of mine, Nick Clark, we would like to follow the path in some ways that Camel has of high quality mid-size assets. You can turn yourself into a very, very good business doing that.
Okay.
We geographically, so the main focus is Africa, but we will be opportunistic at looking at other assets. We have one in particular that is not in Africa, but it's in a very, very good first world jurisdiction, and we like it a lot. We'll see where we get to on a transaction for that.
Okay. So you see a lot of opportunity now then positioning in copper. What about some of the risks associated with being very copper focused only?
Well, look, I don't see an enormous amount of copper specific risk. It's more really, I would call it equity risk, which is,
Okay.
as we've talked about in the past. Look, the equity markets are in a difficult phase right now, and whenever you have a difficult phase in the equity markets and you have a contraction in the liquidity provided to them, which is possible now. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there could be some backtracking and all this could be over. Who knows? But when there's a contraction in liquidity provision, for primary capital to these companies, that's our lifeline, the blood that we live off is equity capital. So that I would see is the number one risk. I don't see a huge amount of risk in copper. Yes, I know some people talk about China and the slowing of the economy there and the industrial uses of it outside of the energy transition space as being important. But in general, the forecasts that you see for copper is that there will be a deficit, and all you need to do is, just go look at any Friedland video, and he will tell you why copper is brilliant. If you want to understand where you think the shortfall is going to come in the future.
Okay, and you're also looking. You said to upgrade your stock exchange listing here. So what could that
Correct.
look like?
Well, look, we think that Aquis has done its job for the company for now.
Okay.
But there's two things we want: was better access to capital and better access to liquidity. We want to make sure that shareholders have proper access to the market so that they can, depending on what individual decision they make as to day to day, whether or not they need to monetize some of their holding in the company, be it for personal reasons or because they, their belief in the copper story has changed. We want to make sure that they have that access and an upgrade in exchange, whether depending on which senior exchange it is, that's not finally decided. But we have been speaking to advisors in London, so obviously it makes London the main most likely market. We have some very, very good advisors who have signed on to help us both with the capital raising and also with the regulatory process. So, that includes reporting accountants, nomads, brokers, lawyers, ready to go when the assets are in the right state to move.
Okay, good. So you've talked about this 3 to 5 year timeline here. So this is really at the moment, I'd say a resetting of the page here with Oscillate here. You're starting getting these early stage. It's fair to say, I think, early stage exploration with the idea to build that over 3 to 5 years. So, I mean, what can we expect to see from the company? You've got the LSE listing and then presumably new projects being announced coming in and then presumably some exploration plans on those projects.
Yeah. So each one of the projects that we're looking at has a very good. Some of them are, I don't want to call them greenfield, the mid-stage kind of exploration.
Okay.
So they will either have geophysics or good ground sampling or trenching or maybe even some of the drill holes, a bit like Chikundo, right? So they're a discovery most likely already, and then it's the conversion of that discovery either directly into a pre-feasibility or through if necessary, primarily through a PEA by, a maiden resource or something like that. So, and as you know what that process looks like, so that'll be the completion of whatever geophysical work and whatever groundwork needs to be done, followed by a drill program, be that RC or diamond for relatively small amounts of money for those initial ones. Maiden resource, that's a 12-month process, something like that. But as you go through that, there'll be lots of news flow about how the discovery is shaping up. And then obviously when you've done that, your PEA will come out, and then you go back and you'll expand or infill your resource to upgrade it from inferred to indicated and measured. So that's the kind of process, and that, as you know, that takes some years to get through.
So just a final thought then, Robin, to investors who are either existing shareholders in Oscillate and have been following the story through various transitions of that company, or indeed investors today. The market's obviously had a big pullback, but opportunity perhaps presenting at the moment with valuations pretty low anyway in London, and perhaps even more so at the moment if you've got capital to deploy there. What's the hook here for investors? I mean, we're obviously waiting to see some new announcements from the company, but is it really, look, we're a bit of a copper play early and we have these plans to build this company into a mid-tier producer? Or, well, you said being taken over effectively.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't plan to to just create the resource for takeout. But we have a track record of building companies in the past, so that's what we'll do again. And we have good backers who've done very well through backing us previously. We'd expect them to back us in the transition to the larger market. And then you mentioned, that the valuations are low, but if you look at ours hasn't even moved. I mean, that tells you about the liquidity in the market. So yeah, obviously we think it's a good point for people to enter the stock, and we'll see significant value accretion in the very, very near term, because I mean, basically the company's valued at cash, and that cash is going to get deployed directly into assets for exploration.
Okay. Good, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Robin Birchall, the CEO of Oscillate Plc. So I'm sure we'll be talking again in the not too distant future.
Yeah, excellent. Always a pleasure, Mark. I love doing interviews with you. I'm recommended to all my colleagues who are CEOs. And just one last thing I'd like to mention. We've started a small new club in London called the Mining Entrepreneurs Club. So I will be having. We had the first event of that last week. It was very, very successful. We'll be having in the future. I'm definitely going to extend an invite to you, and hopefully be able to introduce you to a number of CEOs who can do some interviews with you. And we look forward to doing another interview with you in the not too distant future. So yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Robin, very much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.